guys, Adam Greenberg with the Montana Real Estate Consultants team here at Coldwell Banker Distinctive Properties in Bozeman. And this is the video that I promised to you all last week that's going to delve a little bit more into actually how the coronavirus is affecting the real estate market. I know there's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of instability in the market. We've all seen the stock market crash. So I want to help quell some of those fears by studying the past so we can know how things are going to continue in the future. One thing we know for sure in these unprecedented times is that this is going to come to an end, okay? We know that at some point the virus is going to run its course and business will get back to usual. The question is, how fast will we get back to usual, right? So I think what's important to know is that a lot of people, of course, are thinking, oh my, the stock market's crashing. This is going to be just like 2008. This is not 2008, okay? There's a huge difference between what's going on now and what happened in 2008. In 2008, we had a system meltdown and crash, okay? Everybody was drawn down by it, propelled by the housing market. This is more like an event like 9/11 where something has happened, it's going to pass, and then we're going to move on. Think of it, I know I've heard this analogy a lot, like a snowstorm, right? The snow comes, we all get buried in our houses for a week or two, then the snow melts and we move on. That's what this is more like. So I have a couple slides here that I want you to take a look at that can show you the difference between what's going on now and what was going on, for example, before the 2008 crash. Okay, so one of the biggest driving factors of the crash in 2008 was the fact that people were using their houses like an ATM. All right, they were taking all of the equity that they had built up in their home and they were cashing it out. And you can see in this slide that back in 2005, 2006, and 2007, we had a total throughout the country, people were taking out $824 billion of equity out of their homes, okay? Let's compare that to now. Now we're only at about $232 billion, all right? People learned their lessons from the last time. They're not cashing out every piece of equity that they have in their home and going and buying jet skis and boats and anything else like that. They're being a little smarter with their money. And that is a fantastic thing. All right, in this next slide, you can see another contributing factor to the crash in 2008 was in 2007, we had 8.2 months of inventory of homes on the market. Compare that to today where we only have 3.1. Okay, anything over 6 months is considered a buyer's market and anything less than 6 months is considered a seller's market. And if you've been following the real estate market the last few years, you know we've been in a seller's market. We've been down from 3 months to 2 months to just actually a couple weeks, depending on what point of the year we are in. People are always asking me in a normal situation, is winter a good time to sell my home versus spring when we know everybody puts their homes on the market? And my answer has been in the last few years, it has been all year long, has been the time to sell. There's buyers out everywhere, and especially right now with interest rates so low, I know they're volatile, and we're going to get to that conversation here in a moment, but with interest rates being so low, buyers have much more power to buy, and there's still nothing on the market for them to buy. Another huge difference between today and what happened back in 2006, 2007, and 2008 was that the percentage of your income needed to purchase a home is much less today than it was back then. If you check out this slide here, it shows you that back in 2006, 25.4% of your income was going towards your mortgage, right? Today, you only need 15.5% of your income to go to your mortgage. That's huge. The ability for you to purchase much more house at a much lower mortgage payment. So let's talk a little bit more about that fear that people have that this is going to be just like it was back in 2008 when we had the big crash. Okay, I'm going to put up this slide here that is going to show you the history of the last 5 recessions, okay? You can see in 1980 that home prices didn't go down. They were at 6.1%. In 81, they still went up 3.5%. The next big one was during the 1991 recession, where the prices only dropped 0.19%. Okay. 2001, you can see it went up to 6.6% in that recession. And in 2008, you can see that huge 20% drop. And that's obviously when the market crashed. Now, what's the difference between all of these? Only in that one in 2008 was driven by the actual housing market. The system failed. Loans were being given out to people who couldn't really afford to pay the mortgages. I think we all know the history there and we know the story. So if you look back at the history over the last 5 recessions, home prices actually increased in value. So that is what we're looking at here. We're not expecting a huge drop in your home value this time because, once again, as I said, this is an event and not a system failure. And more to that point of comparing what we're going through now to a 9/11 or like the dot-com bust that happened back in the 2000s. Let me pull up this slide for you. You can see. So in September of 2000, you can see where the S&P 500 had a huge 45% correction, but home values still continued to rise. In the year 2000, the appreciation was 8.6. In 2001, it was 6.6. In 2002, it was 8.5. So what this slide is showing is the volatility of the market over years between leading up to the crash of 2008 and currently, right? So if you look at this, going from 2000 over to 2005, you can see that for a minute there, homes were appreciating around between 6.5% and 8.5%. And then starting in 2004 is when it started creeping up. Homes were increased by 12.5%, down to 11.4%. And that was because of all the volatility in the market and the loans being out there and the inflated value of the pricing. Now let's take a look at the other portion of that slide, which is the last 6 years. And you can see it's way more stable. In 2014, it was 4.4%, leading up to now in 2019 last year, and it was only 4.7% with a little bit of a rise and fall in between in those years. So the market is much, much more solid today than it was back then. Once again, it's because of the event, not a system crash. That's what you need to keep in mind. So a lot of questions that I'm getting from some of my clients and friends are, hey, Adam, the Fed just lowered the borrowing rate to 0%. Does that mean that I can borrow money to buy a home at 0%? The answer to that is no. That has really nothing to do with mortgage rates. Let me put up this slide here, and this is going to show you how mortgage rates kind of work. So as people pull money out of the stock market right now in this fearful and volatile time, they start transferring that money from the stock market into the treasury bonds, okay? And as you can see from this graph, that the treasury rate and the 30-year fixed mortgage rate pretty much correspond with each other going back from 1972 all the way down to basically today. So this is almost 50 years of history of how the bond market works along with the mortgage rates. Now, the reason why today it's a little bit different is because what we're in right now has never happened before, or at least it hasn't happened in over 100 years. The reason why it's different today is because the coronavirus is something we've really never gone through, and the market is so volatile that it's going to take a little bit for it to calm down. But everybody is expecting for it to calm down when this is over, and interest rates are going to drop. Okay, let me pull up some interest rate numbers for you so you can see what they are. Okay, going back to mid-2018, you can see the interest rate was at 4.54%. And over the time between now and then, it has dropped to as low as on March 5th, 3.29. For everybody who locked in a loan on that day, you guys won. 3.3 is an amazing interest rate. However, so is the 4.75, which is at the top of this graph. That is still a low interest rate. And once again, once this virus runs its course, According to all the experts and people I'm talking to in the lending industry, everyone expects the rate to drop again to help people get back on their feet. Another question I get all the time is, Adam, are we in a recession? Oh my, we're in a recession. The stock market's plunging. My home values are going to drop. What's going to happen here? I'm going to show you what Goldman Sachs is forecasting. They're the experts for what's going to happen here with this coronavirus as it runs its course. Okay, we're finishing up the first quarter now, and we're a little bit down. Next quarter, because of the quarantine and people shutting down their businesses, they're expecting a 5% drop off. And then as the virus runs its course, we expect a very fast turnaround and shoot back up for a GDP forecast of 3%, even up to hopefully 4%, and really roaring as we get into 2021. Now, do we know for sure that this is going to happen? No, but judging by the history of what's gone on in China and some of the other countries, the virus is already running its course, and less people are being infected on a daily basis, and it's going down. So if you've been watching the news, you know that they've had a consecutive number of days where there has been no reports of any new people having the virus. That's great news. Another thing that's important to know, as I mentioned before, the consumer got smart. They're not taking out all of the equity in their home and going buying luxury items. So the government has also gotten smart about what happened last time. They're being way more proactive this time than they were last time. We know right now, as I'm talking to you, that Congress is going back and forth trying to pass bills, and they will get something passed, I guarantee that. Right now, it's kind of just a fight over how that money is going to be spent and who it's going to. But what's important is they're funneling money in to protect the workers so that even though the market has dropped and people are out of work, it's only temporary, and they're going to shore people up in the meantime to get them through this brief period. And once again, we do believe that this is going to be brief and this isn't going to last for a year or months and months on end. And once again, maybe that's the optimist in me, but I'm going back to what you can see going on in China and Korea and some of the other countries that the curve has flattened. What's also awesome is the banks are also educated, and they're not going through what they did last time. We're not going to see this foreclosure explosion like we did in 2008. Between the state and the feds, they're coming up with programs, as well as the individual lending companies themselves and banks, to either give a forbearance on your rent and or mortgage, and then they can tack it on the back side. I'm going to put a link at the bottom of this video that can show you what all of the major banks are doing in order to help out the consumer. Once again, banks are not in the business of owning homes. They're in the business of selling loans and loaning money so that consumers can get into a home. They're not in the business of owning, and they do not want to do that again. So I hope this information was valuable to you if you were interested in it. But here's the takeaway and the most important thing. The most important thing is your health and your safety and that of your family and your friends. Okay? Stay home, stay safe, wash your hands, stay away from people, do social distancing. Everything you can do to help flatten that curve will help speed this process up so that we can get back to doing what we do. If you have any questions and you want to talk more about this, please don't hesitate to give me a call. I'd look forward to having a conversation with you. But more importantly, if you need anything in this time, if you need food, if you need some medication, whatever you need, between what I do in real estate, and as many of you know, I'm also a musician, I know a lot of people, and I can facilitate getting just about anything done. I pride myself on that. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you need anything. But I hope you're doing well. We're all going to get through this together. I have no doubt about this, and this too shall pass. I'll see you guys soon.